I feel like I could talk about broken all day long because I think all of us can relate. We've all been broken at one point in time. It's great to talk about broken, how you recover from being broken. So when they said it's now reality, it really freaked me out because now I'm talking about a completely different topic that I don't think I'm a subject matter expert, particularly on reality. And then I left for a 2-week trip, so I've been on the road. So I have a lot of time on planes. I've taken all these flights. I'm just thinking about reality and what it's like to be in reality. And I'm used to public speaking. I speak a lot about entrepreneurship, so you hear me talk a lot about my business, a lot about the things I've learned, mostly about the mistakes that I've made and hopes that maybe you can avoid making those same mistakes again. But I could talk about them all day long, but reality seems like a very abstract concept because I wouldn't consider myself a spiritual person per se, so I'm not going to talk to you about reality and getting in touch with reality and finding your reality because that's just not really me. It's not true to who I am. But I am going to talk a lot about reality. I'm going to say the word reality about 7,000 times in today. So it was a stretch for me, but we'll start with reality. And I think that reality, to begin with, has a very negative connotation. There's movies, reality bites, right? Reality's not good. Reality stinks. And you hear somebody say, the reality of the situation is, nothing good ever comes after that, right? It's like when someone says, no offense, but nothing good ever comes after that. That's kind of what reality is. But, reality, I'm not going to say that reality isn't harsh because I think it is harsh. It's being able to look at your life and look at your business and look at your relationships in a way that is real. That's where the word reality comes from. It's eye-opening and it's difficult. So what I thought I'd do is I'd share a little bit about my story, my reality, and then tell you a little bit about some of the things I've learned along the way. So I grew up in a small city outside of Chicago, north of Chicago, called Palatine. And I grew up in a family, a single-parent mom. She had 3 kids. And she was a teacher, so she worked really hard to put us through school. We had anything we wanted, but we didn't have the extras. And so I grew up in very humble beginnings. And I went to the University of Illinois, and I studied to be a doctor. And the reality of that situation is none of you would want me operating on you. And so I did not finish my career. So what I ended up doing is when I was in high school, I had a TV show on cable. It was called Ben TV. And it was this really, looking back on it now, it's this obnoxious little TV show where I would go and interview people, and it was a great way to meet girls, to be honest. And so we interviewed people, and we did a little commercial with McDonald's. We said, hey, say you saw this guy Hilton on Ben TV, and you get a free drink with your extra value meal. So all these kids and all my friends would pour through the drive-thru, and they're just getting all these things, and it raised a red flag with McDonald's. So all of a sudden, they wanted to meet with me. So they met with me, and they decided they were going to hire me. So when I was 16, I got to work at McDonald's Corporate Communications, and I worked with them doing videos and events and such. But what I didn't realize is I was being part of a team of 4 people. It was myself, this guy Dave, this guy Jimmy, and this guy Mike. And we were at a regional office in Chicago, but I didn't realize that Mike was being fast-tracked. So every year I'd come back from spring break, I'd come back from Christmas break, from winter break, and I'd work for McDonald's as an intern. And I didn't realize this guy was being fast-tracked. So every time they're like, show up at this office, show up at this office, show up at this office, and I was being fast-tracked. So by the time I graduated college, the guy I was working for was president of McDonald's USA. So he was the #1 guy in America for McDonald's. And so we worked on a bunch of campaigns. You probably are all, most of you are too young to remember. Does anyone remember the Arch Deluxe? Is there a grown-up burger? Okay, you didn't hear of it because the campaign failed miserably. And that's the campaign I worked on. So I was just an intern, though, so I didn't have a lot. But I worked for McDonald's. And so when I moved out here, I decided that there was a huge opportunity for budget-conscious, high-quality production, media, and events. And so my boss at McDonald's, Dave, and I decided to start our own company. So we started a company called DAV Productions, and we're small. There's just 2 of us working out of a garage. Like Tammy knows us. We worked out of a garage, and we grew very, very quickly. Some would say too quickly. From the years 2001 to like 2007, we were doubling revenue year over year. And by the time the recession hit, there were 48 of us. So we were a huge company. And it was a lot of fun. It was great, and it was a good learning experience for me. But then the recession hit, and things changed a lot in business. I'm sure all of you remember that. And I think when 2007, 2008 came along, everyone said, buckle up, it's going to be difficult. And nobody believed you because, who would have thought it could last 5 years? We were young. We saw the recession of 2001. We saw it happen, and within 9 months, everything had cleared up. Well, in the event industry, as probably in the creative industry, we're kind of on the outside of the bowl. We're the first thing that gets canceled. When someone says we don't have the money, they cancel an event. When someone says they don't have the money, they cancel the print. They cancel everything, right? So we're the first person to be canceled. Finally, when they realize things were recovering, they say, oh, maybe we should do an event. Maybe we should do a commercial. So we're on the outside of the bowl. So it was a difficult lesson to learn, especially as a young entrepreneur. I was 22 years old when I started that company. We were one of the top 3,000 fastest growing companies in the U.S. We were in the Inc. magazine. We were doing really well. We were rocking and rolling. And this is when I think you guys can all relate. Life kind of hits you. It's like things are going too good. Things are going great. You kind of feel like something's coming for you. And something did come for me. And it changed my life drastically. So in 2013, my best friend of my entire life just decided he didn't want to work with me anymore. He was my director of sales. So he and my ex-wife at the time decided they were going to go start another company. And they decided they were going to take $3.5 million of business. And they decided they were going to take a bunch of my employees. And that was the end of DAV, real quick, overnight, like happened like this. They walked in my office at 8 o'clock in the morning. They quit. Company's gone. So the next day I wake up, and that's a much different reality than I had the day before. I had a company valued at maybe $25 million on Thursday. And Friday morning, I had nothing because my directors had left, my best friend had left, my ex-wife had left. It changed my reality. And so that's where I'll stop for a minute, now that I've bummed you guys all out. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about reality first. I think reality it's a very strong word, I think you guys would all imagine. So let's think of another strong word. The other strong word I think you can all relate to is love. Everyone knows what love is. This is where we get interactive. So can someone tell me what they feel the opposite of love is? Indifference? Okay. Anybody else? Fear. Okay, good. Well, I think you're exactly right. But I think most people would equate love with hate. You know, I love someone, I hate someone. And I feel like you're more right. I think that love and hate lie on the same plane, and they're actually closely related, and you can't have one without the other. So I would say the opposite of love would actually be indifference. And so let's put that towards reality. So what's the opposite of reality? I would say fantasy and imagination. You live in a reality, and that's your world, that's your life, and then you've got this fantasy, this imagination. And I think that's great. So let's talk about reality first. I put down a couple notes. I said reality is harsh. It's really harsh. Yeah?
I had a thought. To me, the opposite of love is mediocrity.
You know, when it comes to polar opposites, it's like when you say, I love someone, I really love them, what's the opposite? I wouldn't say, I think that person's mediocre. I'd say, I hate that guy. You know, I don't hate many people. There are a few people on that list. But I don't hate many people. But, you know, reality is harsh. And the hard thing about reality is you can't control it. I think the harder you try to grab a hold of it and control it, the further it slips from your fingers. So you can't control it. It's sometimes painful. In my case, it's very painful. Going back and thinking about my best friends, my business, things I'd spent my whole professional career building. And I think it's different from different perspectives. I think your reality, although maybe completely accurate, is a different reality from the guy standing to your right or to your left. And so realities are different. They shift. And I think that the phrase, it is what it is, could not describe reality more. It truly is what it is. And so let's talk about fantasy. It's a dream. It's a wish. It's something you're wanting to do. It's a thing out there. And so I think that fantasy actually shapes your reality. It's good to have a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of imagination. The people in this room, even more so, you guys are all creatives. You guys are very left-brained. I'm very right-brained. And so for me, I have to force myself into thinking and dreaming and thinking about reality. And I think it's important because it shapes your reality. And I think that life without a little imagination is probably pretty boring. And so I'm very glad that I have the ability to do that. So I want to talk about how the two played a role in my life. So DAV, I put everything into this company, my entire professional career, all my money. In the recession, I made a conscious decision that turned out to be wrong to save jobs instead of saving the company. So whereas I should have said there's 48 of you, 38 of you are getting fired. The 10 of us that are really core to this company are going to move into a house. The other 38 of you, you can collect unemployment and we'll pick you back up as we can. So I should have done as a CEO. That's what a ruthless CEO did. Instead, I decided I'm going to sell everything I have. I'm going to put every penny I have. I'm going to mortgage my house. I'm going to sell my car. I'm going to do everything I can so that you have a job. And I had a meeting, and I said, listen, if you work hard for this company, I will do everything I can do to keep you employed. I'll try to protect you from this bubble that's coming, that's going to pop. And I did that, and we made it through that. And the reality of the situation was that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And so my reality was very scary. I was put in a really bad place. I had a daughter I'm very excited to have here, Kaylin, most important person in the world to me. I had her that I had to provide for. I'm a single dad now, trying to figure out what I want to do. See, when you're a graphic designer, you're an editor, you're a shooter, when you lose your job, you've got a great resume and you go and apply for another job. When you're a CEO of a failed company, you can't exactly put that on your resume and go find another job. So I didn't have a lot of options. could go back and work at McDonald's, like in the restaurant, right? I could go, I could go back to school. I could call my mom for help. I could call my friends for help. And I'm not going to lie, my mom and my friends did provide a bunch of support for me. But the reality of my situation was pretty stark at that particular time. So I think that that's when you get this why in the road. And I talk about whys. I was talking to Chu a little bit about this earlier. You all have these times in your life where you hit a crossroads. You're going to go one way, you're going to go the other way. And I think that the coolest part about those, and I love those points in your life, and I think you can all go back and pick 5 major ones that led you to this moment, to this room, to this relationship you're in, to this job you're in. But the coolest thing about whys, I think that's truly where this imagination meets reality. And it's a pinpoint in your timeline. It's your ability to say, listen, I don't want to go this way. This is my life. I want to go this way because I imagine that my life can be different, can be better, can be greater, happier, and you go that way. So I think that's truly where this imagination and this reality kind of hit this intersection, and you get this why in your life, and they're great. I said it's the crossroad of what is and what can be, and I love that about those. And I don't think imagination necessarily needs to be creative. I use the word imagination, and I think when people think imagination, they think, I'm going to be really creative, I'm going to go out there and do something, I'm going to make something, I'm going to build something. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be seeing a different reality, imagining that your life can be happier, it can be a relationship. I'm not happy. It can be better if I go this way. A job. I hate working at this company. I want to go work for the UFC. Chew. It could be it could be anything in the world. It's a pinpoint in your timeline, and that's the way life works, and that gets you here. So I had a choice. My choice was I could sit on my butt, and I did for a while, for about a month. You can imagine how depressing it is. You've lost your business, you've lost your wife, you've lost your best friend. You feel like everything's been taken from you. You don't know what you're going to do. And so I laid in bed a lot. And then I realized one day, I said, listen, I have a choice. And this is not a pep talk. This is just what was going in my head. You have a choice. You've got tools. You've got people who care about you. You've got customers still. You have people that are relying on you not to be the guy that fades and withers away into nothing. And so I got back up. I contacted certain people that I had worked with in the past that I wanted to work with again. I started talking to past clients and said, hey, would you be interested in working with us? We're going to be a small boutique company. We're not going to be 48 people ever again by design. We're not going to own millions of dollars of equipment by design. And would you be interested in coming with us? And people said yes. So here's what I did. I started a company called the B2 Group that you heard about. The B2 is for Ben Brownback, not that creative, but it's all I could come up with at that time. And I decided to hire one of my best friends, Josh Meter. He's the guy I'd worked with at DAV. He was the guy I could rely on creatively, and he was my creative director, my vice president. And slowly but surely, I slow played it. In a world where I wanted to be a big company, I mean, I loved that. I think everyone would love walking in a building and being the boss of 48 people and having a complete support staff and having resources and bankers and accountants and finance guys to support you. It's great. It's a powerful feeling. And then you go to being a small business again, and you're now going to the post office and you're putting stamps on. You're trying to figure out how you're going to mail something. You have to open up a USPS account. I mean, you start over from scratch. So I made a conscious decision to slow play it and not make the same mistakes I did before. Started hiring people slowly but surely. We're up to 10 employees now. And I'm happy with 10 employees. 10 employees is actually 9 more than I was expecting to have. When I first started this company, I said I would never have employees. Best thing about owning a company is owning a company. The worst thing about owning a company is employees. And I should say the best thing is employees, because they make the world go round. They make you great, but there's always issues. You always have to deal with them. I'm what we call, in the business world, I'm what we call a servant leader. And by that, I mean that my job is really to remove the barriers to the people that I work for. So my job is to make Seth, who works with me, his job easier. My job is to make anyone else that works for me is to make their job easier to do so they can do their job. That's what we call a servant leader. And so I get to the point where I said, this is all great. I'm sure you guys are all interested in this. It's a fun story, but you're sitting there thinking, I got up early for this. What does this have to do with me? I'm probably not going to be a CEO someday, or maybe you are, which would be awesome. What does it have to do with me? And so I think my biggest point is someone as analytical and right-brained as I am can have the ability to think a little bit different and dream a little bit, that anyone in this room can do that, especially the creatives in this room. And so I think you need to realize that the decisions you make, the relationships you're in, the meetings you go to, coming to events like this, forcing yourself to go out to a bar at night when you want to stay at home because you want to meet up with some people, that's where the magic happens. I'm a business development guy. Magic doesn't happen in a boardroom. Magic happens outside of a boardroom. And when you're outside of a boardroom, you're socializing, you're doing business development, that gets you into the boardroom. And that's when you can close business. And so just being out there and meeting people, that's where you find a job. I mean, most people find their jobs through another person. It's not even their friend. It's usually their friend's friend. It's usually 2 degrees of separation. That's where you find your job. That's where you find your client. That's where you find, your resources. And so I think it's important just to get out there and be involved and be active. That's really important. And I think it's okay to dream and imagine, but I think it's also healthy to remember that your dreams need to be based in reality. It's like building a house on sand, right? You build a house on sand, it's going to continue to crumble every single time. So you need to make sure when you're out there, it's like, yeah, I could say to myself, I want to be president of the United States, and I could do it. Well, first of all, I'm adopted, so I couldn't do that. I wasn't born in the States. But if I was actually born here, I think it would be a reality based in fantasy. And I think that fantasy partaking in reality is fine. I just don't think it's good to have fantasy as your basis for reality. There's a big difference. A couple of things that I've learned as being a CEO about reality is that, and this can be translated to being a leader in an organization, is that you actually have the ability to shape the culture of your company. I think that's the most important thing. You have the ability to make a company fun. Thanks. You have the ability to make things fun. You have the ability to make things bad. You have the ability to create a really tense environment for your team. You have the ability to create a really fun environment for your team. And you are the leader when it comes to that. I think it's also important to realize that you're going to win some and you'll lose some. That's just reality. And as a CEO, my biggest challenge in starting this new company is I was scared. I was scared, and that's why Broken was a perfect, perfect team, because I mean, it was clearly broken down to nothing in 2003. But I was scared, and when you're a CEO, you can't be scared. When someone asks you a question, you have to have an answer. You have to be right in their mind, at least. They call it doing plus deltas in all these books. You make a decision. It's like a military leader. You make a decision, and then you do a plus delta later. So you don't have the opportunity to really think about things. You have to be right all the time, and then figure out how to fix it if it wasn't right. And the same thing applies in business. When you're a leader, when you're a CEO, you don't have the opportunity to sit and ponder about things. And I was so broken and so scared that the reality of my situation was I wasn't a great CEO when I started the company because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very wishy-washy, I guess is the best word I could use to describe it, about the decisions I was making, who I was going to hire, how I was going to go after clients, what I wanted to grow. Did I want an office? Did I want to hire people? It was very difficult, and that's one thing I learned I had to get past. And by winning some and losing some, living in Vegas, it's a perfect example is Blackjack. Is anyone a Blackjack player here? Not really? Okay. So in Blackjack, you're going to win some and you lose some, and statistically, you're going to lose more than you win. The way you win money in Blackjack is betting big on hands you're going to win and losing on the little hands. Business is the exact same way. You've got to bet big. So what I'm saying is when you have a decision to make, you better be right on the big one. You can make a ton of little mistakes. I make a ton of little mistakes every day, but you better be right on the big ones, and that's how you get a payout. Problem in business is when you make a mistake on the big one, like trusting the wrong person, putting your money in the wrong thing, hiring the wrong people, investing your emotional intelligence as well as your assets to one particular thing. That's when business can go downhill really quick. Two other things that I like to talk about are perception and reality. You hear that term, perception is reality? Kind of. The way that people look at things makes perception reality, but they're two totally different things. And I think that the difference between perception and reality is that with reality, you can create a legacy. Nobody can question a legacy. That's why it's called a legacy. And so by making the right decisions over and over again, you can turn your reality into a legacy, and that legacy can't be questioned. That should be the goal of any individual, professionally or personally. And the last is it's really lonely at the top. I think all of you that have been a project leader, have been in charge of something, can attest to the fact that it's really lonely when you're top. You don't have a lot of people to talk to. A lot of things you have to keep to yourself. And so you have to remember that you have to keep your thoughts and your decisions based in reality. I think that's important. So here's some things I found that were important to me. My family, my personal time, giving back to the community, and creating the right culture. I'm not 22 anymore. I used to want to work 80 hours a week. I wanted my employees to work 80 hours a week. I wanted to make millions of dollars. I wanted to have boats and cars and houses, and I wanted to be able to party. And I want to do all those things. I still want to do some of those things. But for the most part, I've learned that there are things that are more important. Head count is not important to me. I don't care how many employees I have. I just want to have 10 good employees. Dollar value doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm billing $10,000, $100,000, $10 million, as long as I'm preserving my margins. I'd rather physically make the money. They're just things that were important to me in the past that are no longer important to me now. And that's the reality of the situation. I think it's growing and maturing as an entrepreneur. So I'll leave you with a couple closing comments. I think doing okay on time, right? Okay, good. I will say that my reality right now is awesome. I am happier than I've probably ever been in my life. I would never wish a divorce or a breakup on anybody in this room, but again, it's reality. Somebody in this room will get divorced. Somebody in this room will have a bad breakup, and it's the way you deal with it. That's I think what makes the mark of who you will be and what you'll be. But without the divorce and without losing my company, I never would have started this new company. I never would have met the people in this room. I wouldn't have met any of you. I wouldn't be speaking to you. I wouldn't be able to spend time with my daughter who's now sleeping. Clearly, I'm doing a great job today. I would never have time to spend with her and do the things I do. For me, my relationship with my daughter is the most important thing to me, and I will talk openly and freely about that every single day of the week. I wouldn't get to go dress shopping with her or princess shopping or the things I'd get to do now as a single dad if I wasn't a single dad anymore. And so I guess my point is sometimes these stark, depressing, scary realities turn into like the most wonderful things in the entire world, and I'm very blessed and happy about that. And whatever you do, you just need to do it well. I think that changes things too. If you do what you do well, I think again that's the mark of leaving a legacy. And so giving back is important to me, and being able to speak with you guys. And I love reality. I can honestly say that I'm not scared of it. I love it, and I just wanted to thank South Megan for having me. And it was a great time. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.